probably more than 5 minutes. So let's talk about the involuntary reassignments or the directed reassignments. You've spoken about that. You said there is or is not evidence that that was done as a retaliatory action.
I do not have any direct evidence. What I'm waiting for is to see what the results of the Office of Special Counsel investigation tells me with respect to a couple of the people who have made such allegations.
Well, the Office of Special Counsel has already stayed Andrew Rhodes' directed reassignment as well as Becky Rohring's suspension due to evidence that there were cases of improper whistleblower retaliation. Are you telling me that they haven't given you the final report? Is that what you're waiting for, or?
I am waiting for, as Mr. Rhodes has an outstanding investigation which is still pending. In the meantime, I was pleased to see that prior to my arrival that had been stayed, and he is still located in the.
What about Becky Rohring's?
Same with hers. I understand that hers is still undergoing review as well.
And you have no other evidence of any other?
I myself do not have
retaliation. Do you have any other evidence of any other types of retaliation above and beyond the directed reassignment tool that they had used?
I don't have personally any knowledge of any other retaliation. If I see it, I will take action to address it.
Mr. Roth, do you have anything to shed on this?
I do not. I don't have any evidence that I could share, at least today.
Okay. Administrator, we have, particularly over the last 6 months, I've got kind of one-page, two-sided page here of outstanding requests that we have from this committee. We will give you a copy of this. I don't expect you on the spot to respond to it, but there's some that have had no, he's handing you a copy there. Again, I don't expect you on the spot, but we need help getting these responses in a timely manner. Some have been good, but others have been not so good. Some we've had nothing on. We get very frustrated with having to do in-camera reviews. We handle classified intelligence on a regular basis. I just need your support in responding to these outstanding requests.
Yes, sir, I will.
I want to go back to what Mr. Palmer was talking about. You said you vet daily. When somebody, I want to get a crystal clear picture. When somebody applies and goes through the process of working for the TSA, they get what sort of background check?
It's a standard national agency check. It's the same type of check you do for people coming into the military first time. You do a criminal history background check. You check their name against the terrorist screening database. You look for any disqualifying activities, offenses, or the like in their background prior to coming.
And there are some infractions that would still be acceptable to be hired as a TSA.
There are. I can't enumerate those off the top of my head, but there are some.
If you can provide that, whatever the current standard is.
Yes, sir, I will.
And then you said you vet those daily, but how do you, if somebody were to get arrested, somebody had an assault charge or a murder charge, or pick something heinous, how would you know that once they've been hired?
Well, once, oh, you mean after they've been hired?
Yeah, after.
Well, we do recurrent criminal history background checks. I believe it's I believe it's an annual basis. I'll verify that. And then we do daily recurrent. I mean, it's just a continuous test check against the terrorist screening database for our employees.
450 or so airports. I'm not sure how many ports you're dealing with. How many of these, you mentioned 900,000 security badges of all sorts.
In the aviation system.
In the aviation system. Yes, so how many of those do you have a sense of how many of those have biometric information, whether it even be as simple as a photograph on them?
Well, they all have photographs. As you know, those are issued. These are the badges that airports and airlines issue their individuals, and it's set individually at each airport. So a badge that you have for Atlanta Hartsfield will not work in any other airport. So these are issued by employers, and the airport, usually the standard is set according to, there's a federal security standard that they have to meet in order for the badge. So they all have to have photographic IDs. They all have to have a biometric identifier associated with them, but not all of those biometric identifiers are necessarily in use for access purposes at every airport.
When you say biometric, one of the issues in the past is they didn't have readers. They didn't have electronic readers for each of these.
Well, I don't want to confuse this with the TWIC card. The Transportation Workers Identification Credential is not a credential that's used in the aviation system. That's the one that is primarily used in the maritime transportation system and people who are interacting with that. That one does not currently have a readers for it. So that biometric in the maritime world is not currently in use. So it's still it's a badge or a card that's issued with a background check. It has a biometric on it, but not all the readers are out there. But in the aviation system, so that's a government-issued card. It's a joint program between the Coast Guard and TSA. It does not apply to aviation workers. That's a much larger population of people who hold that TWIC card.
So you shouldn't be able to use it at an airport, but it is in the maritime?
You cannot use it in
And what about shipping, cruise lines, things like that?
Yes, sir.
What you're talking about?
Yeah, truckers that interact with the ports and the like.
Okay. That is one of my bigger concerns, is the access that so many people have. I mean, Dulles Airport alone, my understanding is there's some 16,000 security badges out there. To Mr. Palmer's point, what he was talking about is, why not check people who go, why not check TSA employees as they go in and out? And you check a pilot, I stand there and, they go to the front of the line, as they should. Pilots are checked. My goodness, if we're trusting somebody, it's trusting a pilot. Why not check each person?
Well, we do check each person. They do recurrent drug testing. We vet them against the databases. We watch them every day. Remember, these are people who are standing in the security checkpoint day in and day out, and we pay close attention to them.
Pop some, pick whatever you want in a backpack, and they just walk past, you would never know, correct?
Well, that's not necessarily true. We do a lot of integrity testing. In fact, we have a pretty good integrity testing program, I think. And if we find people doing wrong, we get rid of them.
You're checking and screening every person that goes through, except the TSA people.
Well, they're checked by definition when they show up in the morning. They're vetted every single day. Like I said, we look at them every single day. They're probably some of the most watched people in the transportation system, because they're under the watchful eyes of supervisors, they're under the watchful eyes of the other screening workforce. So I believe that we're doing a very good job of keeping track of those folks. These are really good people, and they've taken us.
By and large, I'm sure they're really good people, but again, when you have a zero tolerance for, you have to keep security at its highest level. I just don't understand that. We check a pilot, we check the flight attendants, but we don't check the TSA folks going in. And you have had arrests. I mean, there have been problems. It's not as if it's never happened before. Your ability to move drugs or weapons or anything else across that line. Mr. Roth, do you have any insight into this?
I don't, no, Congressman.
I want to move to dogs, if I could. I'm a huge fan of dogs. The person I want to sit next to on the airplane is the person who has had their luggage screened, has had their handheld information screened, they walk through a metal detector, and they've walked by a bomb-sniffing dog. I've never seen some of the technology that's used at the airport. I've never seen it at the White House. I don't see it in Afghanistan, where they're dealing with improvised explosive devices on a daily basis. I don't see it in a lot of other places. Europe has banned some of this technology, and yet we still use it here in the United States. And I appreciate your comments about the dogs, but the single best way to secure an airport from an improvised explosive device is a dog. Would you disagree with that or agree with that?
I think it's a hugely important piece of the security environment. I like dogs too. I'm a big fan of them. In fact, I've been advocating for more canines in the screening in the aviation security environment.
We need more of them, and I hope the appropriations follow appropriately. I want to compliment TSA also on its Instagram presence. You want to see an entertaining Instagram, go ahead and go to the TSA one. I'll put in a plug for it. You got some, I think 400,000+ people that are looking at it. But it's also kind of scary, because almost on a daily basis, I mean, the one I looked at just now had, there was a live smoke grenade that somebody tried to bring onto an airport. At BWI, there was a picture of a gun that they had taken off a person. the rise of people bringing or attempting to bring guns on an airplane is astronomical. I mean, the statistics on this are quite high. My question, maybe you can shed light on what that's happening, but I don't see that there's much any consequence. I don't hear anybody who's getting prosecuted. We have a $10,000 fine. You can go to jail, but find me a person in this country that's violated that. And if you don't know, if you don't understand at this point in time that you can't bring a gun on the airplane, where in the world have you been living? And a lot of people I know will come to the TSA and say, oh, well, I forgot I had my gun in my backpack, gosh darn it. Well, go put it back in your car. I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment. I'm as pro-gun as you get, but if you're an idiot and you don't know you got a gun on you and it's loaded and you're trying to bring it on an airplane, why aren't some of these people going to jail every once in a while?
Mr. Chairman, I'm as shocked as you are by people who bring guns to the airport. And you're right, we saw many, many more last year than we saw the year before. TSA is not a law enforcement agency, so I don't have the authority to take action against individuals. The protocol is that when we see a gun, it gets held inside the X-ray machine we call local law enforcement, and then it's up to local law enforcement and the laws of whatever jurisdiction that they cover to take action against that. We can take action against an individual. We can strip them of their pre-check eligibility if they come through a pre-check line. But it's we have to turn them over to local law enforcement, and it is whatever the law is.
What would the call be? What would you like local law enforcement to do?
Well, again, we know that we have laws in this land where people are allowed to conceal carry, where they're allowed to open carry, and in many states, the local law enforcement says, take that back out to your car and then come back in. Sometimes they get arrested. If you're in New York State, you'll get arrested. If you're someplace else, you might not get arrested. I just don't want that stuff coming through the checkpoint. I mean, it's astonishing what people try to bring through checkpoints.
Okay, so live smoke grenade, trying to bring it on an airplane. What should happen? What are you encouraging? I guess I'm trying to.
Well, we're working very hard. We encourage local law enforcement to take as strong of action as they can. I think if somebody brings a live smoke grenade onto a plane, they shouldn't be allowed to fly anymore. But I don't have the authority to make that decision.
All right. I far exceeded my time. Let's recognize